Dana White recently started his Power Slap League, but it's got a lot of issues, including concerns about injury and exploitation. Oh, and guess what? The fighters don't get paid enough for it either. Now you'd think after news broke out of Francis Ngannou leaving the UFC over not getting paid enough,
anyone who doesn't have to be here, doesn't have to be here. You know that's not true, right? You know how restrictive the UFC contract can be.
they'd have learned a thing or two about the backlash they could get from pulling a stunt like this again. However, it seems like the company is back to its crooked ways, as it has recently been spotted offering fighters a ridiculously low amount of money to participate in the league. Now, it's important to note that the company's full pay scale hasn't been made public information. Still, thankfully, a former UFC star came forward and talked about the issue. He went so far as to reveal how much they were offering him to take part in the league himself. The former UFC fighter is Eric Spicely, who fought in the UFC for 3 years. During that time, he managed to gather a record of 2 wins and 5 losses. Now, you'd think that someone with so much experience under his belt would get offered a large sum of money to participate in a less challenging sport. However, that couldn't be further from the truth. Spicely revealed that the UFC boss had offered him just £1,600 to fight and another £1,600 if he won. I'm not gonna lie, if the money was good, it would make sense to put your health on the line. But for a sum that's not even going to cover your medical bill after your match, it just doesn't seem worth it to me.
He just brushes it off, then unloads with a vicious knockout.
Here's the kicker though, low pay isn't even the worst thing about the league. It's a fact that their fighters suffer from horrific injuries daily.
They call a foul on him now for moving his foot, but Ashbury can't continue.
Now, you might have noticed that your Twitter feed has been clogged up with clips from this new Power Slap League. However, the league seems to be going viral for all the wrong reasons. The fighters who participate in the league seem to be suffering from terrible injuries every time they step in front of the podium. For instance, recently there was a fighter, Chris Kennedy, who got knocked out so badly he suffered from short-term memory loss and couldn't remember where he was. He sat up and looked confused. The doctor had to inform him about how he got knocked out.
We're gonna go ahead and roll. You can sit on your butt right now. Yeah.
Dr. D is next to you. I got the doctor next to you. You got knocked out, okay?
Knocked out doing what? Was that fighting?
You're in the slap of it.
Yep, he didn't even remember how he got knocked out in the first place. The medic then had to tell him that he'd taken part in the Power Slap League and had lost. I don't know about you, but if I woke up on the floor and was told that I'd just gotten knocked out in the middle of a Power Slap match, I wouldn't be feeling too great about myself. Oh, and it appears that White could also be charged with exploitation as a result of this. I mean, where do you even draw the line with this stuff? Are they going to start stabbing each other after this? But guess what? This isn't even the worst injury I've seen from the league. Now, you might be wondering, what could have possibly happened to top that? Well, there was a fighter who ended up getting his face disfigured during the matchup. The man's left cheek was so swollen that you barely recognized the guy anymore.
My God, that was the loudest slap I've ever heard in my life. Okay, bud, man, how are you still standing? Like, what is in your cheek? A lead plate?
Then there was the incident with the female segment of the Power Slap League. There was a female fighter who got knocked out so badly she fell backward onto the floor head first. When she got back up, she flopped over again.
Vicious. Yeah. Vicious.
It's clear that this sport is extremely dangerous and can lead to permanent brain damage. I used to think boxing was a surefire way to head trauma. However, this sport takes the cake. It's beyond me how this sport is even allowed to get coverage. Since they're handing out brain trauma like it's candy, you'd think they'd get shut down pretty quickly. This makes you wonder whether the Power Slap League helps pay for any injuries sustained during the matchups. So, do the fighters receive any compensation for their efforts? When a fighter fights under an organization, at least in the MMA world, they expect to have the company cover their medical expenses. I mean, think about it. If you work someplace and end up getting injured there, you'd expect your employer to help you cover the medical bills. It's pretty common to have some sort of medical plan or benefit when signing up for a company. The same goes for fighters. However, from what I can tell, the Power Slap League doesn't provide its fighters with any sort of med care, because this is probably one of the most brutal sports around right now.
Emmanuel comes out and knocks him out with the first slap.
You'd expect to see them offering medical plans to their fighters to ensure every fighter's career goes on for more than one tournament. Though, from the horror stories I've uncovered about the company, it doesn't seem like the league even pays their fighters enough money for the matchups themselves, much less for their medical bills. This has left a lot of people wondering whether there's any real point to taking part in the sport. So in the end, is taking part in the Power Slap League worth it?
Who will slap their way to victory to the first ever Power Slap title?
In a perfect world, the athletes taking part in the Power Slap League would receive fair compensation for their efforts and get a nice and tidy Medicare package to go along with it. However, this world isn't perfect, is it? It seems like Dana White is hell-bent on exploiting that fact to the fullest. The man seems to be offering what can only be described as the worst wages in the history of combat sports. The wages the Power Slap League is offering to their athletes might just be the worst ever. I mean, the league is offering a measly 1,600 British pounds to its athletes. I'm not going to lie, that might not even cover the travel charges some of these guys might be having to pay. To be honest, I don't understand how Dana White thought that hosting the league was a good idea. He seems to be way out of his depth.
I started seeing some of these slap videos on social media, and I started to do some research on some of the companies and some of the promoters that were involved in it. And, you know, I was first of all, I was blown away by the numbers.
That brings us to the question, will Dana White get canceled for this? The public isn't happy with what the UFC president is doing with his Power Slap League. From what I can tell, White himself doesn't know much about what he's done either. He seems to be making it all up as he goes. The worst part is he doesn't seem to be doing a good job of it either. It seems like no matter how hard he tries, he just can't stop getting bad press. It's pretty funny if you think about it. Dana's Power Slap League is getting famous for all the wrong reasons. It's like every time a clip of the league gets shared on Twitter or any other form of social media, the haters aren't that far behind. Dana might have good intentions, he just doesn't have the best way of conveying them. Still, there's a chance that the Power Slap League will get better with time. You have to remember that the league just started like it's the first ever season of the Power Slap League. People have tried to silence Dana White before. The last time he got major backlash was when he was in every headline for domestic violence. However, that didn't seem to make him go away, so I doubt that the initial hiccups he's facing with his new Power Slap League will do too much damage. From what I can tell, he's still ironing out the issues. Hopefully at some point in the future, he'll have everything figured out and the sport might end up being less brutal. That was the latest on Dana White's new Power Slap League. We'll see you in the following video.
I started seeing some of these slap videos on social media, and I started to do some research on some of the companies and some of the promoters that were involved in it.